Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Isak Clemens Show. I am your host, Isak Clemens. Today is the 5th of March. It is more lamb than lion so far. This is episode number 13. If you'd like to contact the show, you may do so by emailing me at the isacclemensshow@gmail.com. That email address is the same spelling as the podcast itself. Please give the show a follow on the Rumble app and don't forget to check off the notification box so that you never miss a show. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I bet none of you had on your bingo card for this year, as they say. And this involves Commissioner Ron James here in Teton County, Idaho. So last week, an article popped up in the newspaper. This was on the in the Teton Valley News on February the 28th. And the title of the article, I'm going to kind of read through this article and provide my 2 cents and commentary, and I'm sure I'm going to piss a few people off, but that's all right. That seems to be my specialty. But I'm going to try and remain objective with this, hit some key points, and express some dismay. So the title of this article is Teton County Commissioner Ron James joins the race for Idaho Governor. Teton County Commissioner Ron James has filed to run for governor, seeking the state's highest office. James is one of the 7 Republicans challenging incumbent Governor Brad Little in Idaho's May 19th Republican primary. Don't forget to vote. The position carries a 4-year term, and Idaho does not impose term limits on the office. Admittedly, I didn't know that Idaho had no term limits on the governor's office. Perhaps we should. In general, I'm a fan of or a proponent of term limits, especially at the congressional level. Some of these people are petrified wood at this point, and they should not be in office. And I'd be fine applying that standard, across the fruited plain, if you will. I think people get jaded, and how could you not become bought and paid for after your 56th year in Congress or your 13th term as small town mayor? Continuing here, the reason I decided to run here is that we get no representation whatsoever. We're an afterthought in Boise, James said. Well, that might be true. And, a couple things here. My quick math here, and according to ChatGPT, is that Teton County, Idaho represents 0.64% of the Idaho population. So we are less than 1% of the Idaho population. So by default, unless there's something of spectacular interest here, other than the ski resort in Wyoming that we share a view of, I'm not entirely shocked to hear that. Like, no kidding. And here's another just brutal reality of politics. You're a freshman Teton County, Idaho commissioner with no political background, and it takes a while to develop a reputation. Well, takes a while to develop a good reputation, perhaps, and get your name out there and sort of cultivate and grow from seed, essentially, these relationships at the state level. And, I think the thing that grinds me personally about this is there are so many low-hanging fruit issues here in Teton County that have not been resolved that can be fixed here at the local level. Zoning is one of the biggest ones. We keep hearing from longtime families, multi-generational families here in Teton County that they're being priced out. Their brood and offspring cannot afford to live and stay in Teton County. Now, a lot of that's out of our hands because we're at the mercy of the real estate market, borrowing rates, availability of skilled labor to build homes, etc. But when it comes to zoning, we have this elephant in the room, this 35-acre minimum lot size that takes up most of the unincorporated area of the county. That's the area outside Driggs, Victor, and Teutonia city limits. And that's an obstacle for entry to a lot of people. I am not a proponent of quarter-acre lots and 26,000 of them littered across the county just so that people can strictly for the purpose of people being able to live here. But I do think there's some middle ground. And in politics, I think sometimes with these thorny issues, such as zoning, everyone has an opinion on this, myself included. I think there could be some kind of middle ground compromise. I'll get into that a little bit more, but let me continue with the article here. He goes on, he cites that Governor Brad Little has done little for Teton County, citing a $275 million state cut to roads and bridges that forces his county to seek a $1.5 million levy, shifting costs to property taxpayers. He tried to impose a lodging fee on short term rentals to mitigate tourist impacts on roads, the fire department, the sheriff's office, and hospitals, which the legislator blocked. Forgive me, I had to screenshot this article to avoid all the pop up ads. So, just to peel through this article here. So, the state of Idaho, it's an election year, is one of the cited reasons that they're sort of going layer by layer in the state budget. And apparently, one of the issues that's on the chopping block, and to my knowledge, none of this has been signed off or approved. This is just speculative, is they want to cut some of the funding that we would get. I've heard it's, at county commissioner meetings, they've said it's on the order of $1 million that would get cut to Teton County, Idaho road and bridge budget, which is unfortunate. But the state has to do what the state has to do. The budget process is not simple. It's clear as mud. It's complicated. Nobody wants to cut anything. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. No state level representative wants to go back to their constituents and say, hey, we're chopping your funding and your budget. What I completely disagree with is, as soon as word broke of this, almost immediately, the county road and bridge supervisor is out there pushing for a levy, and it sounds like it's going to be on our ballot in May. They're going to be asking for $1.5 million levy. So right now, I mentioned this in a previous podcast, the state's getting whatever tax revenue they're getting. They apparently didn't get enough, or there was a shortfall, or they feel the need to cut the budget. So now we're going to turn around to people who've already been taxed here. Apparently we haven't been taxed enough. Now they're going to hit us up for another pinch and a poke, another 2-year levy. I'm not in favor of that. If I was the commissioner, I would say, listen, we're facing some budget shortfalls from the state. We're going to have to buckle down. We're going to have to prioritize. And, people keep complaining about growth here. I can't think of a better way to slow growth down than let the roads go to hell. And I know that's a very unpopular opinion, and I'm, being, part sarcastic about that, but we live in semi-rural America. There's like 6 paved roads out in the county land, and then there's the state highway. If you want to live on a paved road, move to Rexburg, move to Las Vegas, move back to Santa Barbara or Sarasota or wherever you came from that had a beautiful road system and a population and a tax base to support that stuff. I would have said, no, we're not asking the taxpayers for more money to fill potholes and buy gravel. By my estimation, there's some roads here that could use some TLC, but we're not like one of these YouTube videos you see where there's a bus with the rear axle, half of it hanging off a cliffside over 3,000 feet of sheer cliff. Slow down, accept that you live in rural America, take in the beauty and charm of the clackety-clack of the beat-up roads. And if you want to do 70 miles an hour to get to and from anywhere off the state highway here, move somewhere else that has a better road system. I mean, we're all beating the roads up here. Everyone drives on them. And I never quite understood. I don't know who, other than people that are making deliveries every day, whether it's construction for gravel product or moving equipment around or UPS and FedEx. I don't know who's just out driving around the county, because the Commissioner James often cites, I get complaints about the road and bridge. I get complaints about, that more than anything. Okay, that might all be true. I would turn around and say, hey, listen, I don't have a money tree. We need to just take a deep breath. This will pass. The state will restore funding. Presumably, this is not slated to hit us until next year. So instead, what are they doing? Another tax. I'm already dismayed that Commissioner James was one of the people who helped collect signatures for the recreation district. I am not a fan of the recreation district. I do not want to be giving $500 a year or so to pay for someone else's kid to play soccer. And I know he had these pipe dreams of bring a big lacrosse tournament to Teton County, because yes, Teton County, Idaho is going to get put on the map as the lacrosse mecca of the Intermountain West. I do not agree with that. Jackson has it, and he is like, Jackson has a big lacrosse tournament. Great. Go to Jackson if you want to play lacrosse or whatever. This is a mountain community. Why don't we stick to the mountain things? And more so, let's not push to tax people more, whether it's for roads to make up a state budget shortfall or the recreation tax. So apparently, despite running on the Republican ticket, he's a big tax guy. Carrying on here. James was elected to represent Teton County District 3 in November of 2024. If you don't know, that district, I believe, is the largest district in the county. It's more or less like the west side of the county and the northern reaches of the county, like north of Highway 33 in Teutonia. He has built his local profile around balancing growth, preserving agriculture land and public access, and bringing what he sees as common sense to government. Only 1 year into his time as commissioner, James has big goals for bringing Teton County on the map for the state. The biggest issue he thinks Teton County and the state have in common is growth. Of course. So here we are again. Do we want to slow growth down here? Do we want to accelerate growth? To me, the recreation tax, even though it was billed as not being a vehicle to drive tourism here, it's going to, right? If you build a rock climbing wall in Victor, you improve this, you improve that. You know, they've hired an executive director to run that sham operation. You want these lacrosse tournaments. You want to build a YMCA now. You want to have soccer tournaments here. How could that not drive growth and put more eyes on this place? And that gets me back to, let's just let the roads get beat up a little bit more. And maybe that'll dissuade people. Maybe it'll make people move away. They'll get so infuriated that the roads aren't perfect and they'll move away. I also sort of take issue with this preserving agricultural land. Well, to me, that says you want to slow down growth, right? If you're preserving agriculture land for agriculture, that means people can't build on it. But we need to fix the roads, and we want to tax people. And you know, the part that grinds me about that is that it's being pitched as do or die. Right now, in my opinion, do or die is, how do we make our hospital workable here? I don't care if the roads are beat to hell for a few years. Let them get beat up. They're roads. They can be fixed. Someday when the population grows, or we have a windfall of money, or we're not writing checks for $2 million to settle the Teton Creek Resort lawsuit, we can fund some things. Or here's an idea. Maybe had we not pushed a recreation tax, maybe people wouldn't be so sour about another road tax. Carrying on here, I've talked to several other counties, Kootenai County, Bear Lake County. We had a big meeting and brought all the resort counties in. They're all on board for some kind of change, James said. This is just not sustainable. Idaho is growing like crazy, doubling populations. The state has 38 million visitors a year in tourism. James believes it is not unreasonable to ask for a way to collect revenue from tourists, citing that all other highly tourist traffic places across the country do so. He points to the Grand Targhee expansion cross-border impacts, where Idaho bears service costs while Wyoming and Bonneville County capture more tax revenue. I'm sorry, I'll go to the grave maintaining that Teton County benefits immensely, even if it's not in the form of a trek from Grand Targhee Ski Resort. We are reaping the benefits. Teton County, Idaho, and I would challenge anyone to prove otherwise with this, Teton County, Idaho would not exist or continue to grow the way it does without Grand Targhee Ski Resort here. Personally, I'd be fine if Grand Targhee Ski Resort went away. I didn't move here because of the ski resort. And that ski resort provides jobs and all the downstream revenue, whether it's construction jobs, it's in part supporting our fire department here through a contract agreement they have with Alta, Wyoming. Most of that business is generated by Grand Targhee Ski Resort, so there's jobs created there. The hospital sees revenue from that ski resort, all the restaurants, all the lodging, all the short-term rentals. Anyone that has a flat tire, needs their car fixed, buys groceries. And on top of it, you know, the tax he's pushing would be for the unincorporated areas of the county. Right now in Idaho, and it exists here in Victor, Driggs, and Teutonia, you can have this local option as a resort tax where, and it just passed in Teutonia. So now, you know, look at your receipts. Some places are cute. They don't itemize it on there, but run the math out. You'll see, like if you go to Valley Lumber, you're paying an extra 1% above state sales tax levels. And that goes into some slush fund the city of Victor is entrusted with, and they, you know, do whatever they do with it. They give it to the police department, or they fix sidewalks or new street lights, or, you know, they have certain areas where they're allowed to put that money into. It's not a complete free for all. So the population centers in this county are the cities. And yes, there's people out in the unincorporated areas. And my understanding what he wants to do at the state level, which is so far wildly unpopular, no kidding. And I've heard people that are landlords here who it's unpopular with. He wants to be able to tax short-term rentals out in the unincorporated part of the county and capture some of that revenue. And the numbers I've seen, we're not going to put another $10 million in our pocket. It might be another $1 million. I think it'll be less than that. And now you have to get into how are you tracking these people down? How are you ensuring that it isn't a cash transaction and these people are skirting this fee or, these things indirectly, like, yes, we're taxing the tourists, I guess, but indirectly, these things drive up the cost of everything. And whether I like it or don't like it or not, it's not popular at the state level. And as a freshman county commissioner from little old Teton County, I don't think you have much stroke in the Idaho legislative body. I'll be honest, I don't know that Commissioner James ever went and attended in person or otherwise a county meeting, let alone a state level meeting. I have followed Idaho state politics long enough to realize sometimes the best ideas that have universal buy-in, bipartisan cooperation, they take 3 to 5 years to get them in, especially if it's something where there's money involved. But we've seen over the last number of legislative sessions, there's these, popular ideas, and it takes a lot of time to hammer out the bill and hammer out the ideas and get the thing across the finish line and make sure it'll pass muster and it can't be challenged in court easily. And a recent county commissioner meeting, back to my point of like, hey, let's focus on getting things in order locally. And, the whole saying of crawl, then walk, then run, instead he has run straight to the Idaho State Capitol. And at a recent county commissioner meeting, it was revealed that the budgeted amount for travel for the commissioners is spent for the budget year. I think our budget year goes through the summer. So how much time are you spending in Boise? If you pay attention to the county commissioner meetings, there's a lot of references. I was in Boise. I was here. I was in Boise. I was in Boise. I was in Boise. I'm like, I can't tell anymore if he's a Teton County, Idaho commissioner or if he's a Boise tourism rep willing to give out hotel and restaurant recommendations. I would prefer the prior that he was focused here and especially tackle some of these zoning issues, get our house in order, learn the processes and procedures here. We continually see meetings getting tabled, decisions postponed, things pushed off. And I think a lot of that personally is because the prep work wasn't done ahead of the meeting. You can't be in Boise playing Boise games with the big boys and then also laser focus on what's going on in Teton County. I think it should be 95 to 98% Teton County focused and build up your reputation out in Boise. Carrying on with the article here. His entry into the governor's race comes amid local scrutiny over his residency. In late 2025, allegations surfaced that James is no longer living within his commissioner district, prompting notifications to both the local prosecutor's office and the Idaho Secretary of State's office. Residents have also questioned his relationship to billionaire Thomas Tull, or if he was, or what he is benefiting from surrounding rumors around land parcels and Teutonia's Badger Creek Cafe. So here we are again. More distractions, more drama, more baggage. These are unforced errors that should never happen. The residency one, personally, I read into it. I looked into it. I don't know that there was a violation. The local attorney agreed that there was no violation of the residency rules there. Sloppy paperwork, sloppy living style. Yes, those things I think he could be convicted of. Again, let's focus on the task at hand here. James confirmed on Monday that the residency rumors are by the wayside, telling the Teton Valley News he lives in Tetonia. In his time as commissioner, James says he has learned a lot about political division. Welcome to politics. Between Republicans and Democrats, I think I've bridged that gap somewhat. I disagree. Unless by bridging the gap you mean you have completely shifted to being a Democrat. I told him in a recent exchange that if he runs for office, he should run as a Democrat again. I take exception that when someone runs under the Republican ticket, whether you ran under the Republican Party ticket, right? The Republican Party at the local level and the state level and the national level, they have a platform. They have a set of values. They have a set of goals. They have an agenda, if you will. I don't like when an elected official at any level of government runs for office under a certain heading, and then they get in there and they say out loud, well, I ran as a Republican, but, we're all just one big happy family now. No, no, no. Between Republicans and Democrats, I think I've somewhat bridged that gap. I'm still working on that. The toxic environment of politics these days is just really bad. We cannot even sit down as human beings and exchange ideas. Well, it's hard to exchange ideas if you're in Boise, James said. I added that part. That's not the way the country was formed. I think this country was formed in a Boston bar room, and I bet it wasn't pretty. This country was formed on people sitting down together, having a conversation, knowing we have a problem we have to fix, and hash it out. Just because you have a different letter in front of your name doesn't mean that person is dumb or stupid. Maybe they just think a little bit different than you. Of course, they think different than you. That's why they adhere to a different party's agenda and platform. James emphasizes his goals as governor would be bipartisan collaboration and increasing engagement with rural counties. And this part grinds me probably more than anything. His priorities include ending the 3% cap on increasing county budgets, which he calls outdated, enabling local lodging fees, expanding workforce housing, and protecting Medicaid to keep rural hospitals viable. Let's go through this. There's a lot in that paragraph. His priorities include ending the 3% caps on increasing county budgets. So, simple terms, in the state of Idaho, a county budget, so let's just say road and bridge, right? Since we were talking about that before. Road and bridge can only ask for, well, they can ask for whatever they want. They're only allowed a 3% budget increase year over year. So that helps keep things in check, nice and easy, incremental growth. Maybe there's some growing pains along the way. You know, this is excluding the supplemental levies or bonds and that kind of stuff as a workaround for this 3% tax cap. But I don't like that. I don't want to hear a Republican elected official saying that their priority is going to the state capitol and demanding that the 3% budget cap be blown up. Let's run through this, right? Let's say we get rid of that. Okay, so now Road and Bridge can increase our budget by 50% next year, and we're going to pave all the roads in Teton County. You would bankrupt every household in this county. I don't like that idea. I don't like that county employee salary budgets could just go up 15%, and just write it off as a cost of living increase. If you want to destroy the character of Teton County, and let's face it, the people are what make up a lot of our culture and the character of this place. If you want to change the demographic of the people living here, yes, then prioritize getting rid of the 3% budget cap. And by the way, it's a wildly unpopular idea across the entire state. Idaho is a fiscally conservative state. Sometimes you have to do things over time, incrementally, little by little, do without, sort of tighten up the belt on this, on the budget. You can't just have everything you want your first year in office or ever, perhaps. That's not how it works. So I am dead set against the idea of blowing up the 3% cap. I can't think of I'm going to say it, a more stupid idea. Going through the rest of this article. Enabling local lodging fees, that's what I mentioned before. He has this idea, along with apparently some other counties, of being able to tax short-term rentals. I've heard from some people that own short-term rentals. They're not in favor of this. They have their reasons. I appreciate that Commissioner James is looking for another revenue source, but at a certain point, there's a break even. People saying, you know what, I'm not going to stay there because they put a 20% tax on short-term rentals, and it's just not viable for me to go there and spend my money. Or they collect money that way and say, well, we spent our money on lodging and now we're not going to go out to the local restaurants as much. People only have so much money, right? Because believe it or not, families budget when they go on vacation. At least some of them do. Expanded workforce housing. I'm okay with some kind of solution with workforce housing as long as it's for truly essential workers. I'm sorry, the people making pizzas and flipping burgers, they're non-essential workers. I don't need a pizza shop or a hamburger joint for me to live here safely. I do think we need police, fire, EMS, hospital workers, certain county positions could be deemed essential, but private business, retail, you have to figure out a way to make it work. And if you can't make it work and it doesn't pencil out, then I guess it's not viable here. Maybe your business idea is the wrong business idea financially for Teton County. Now, if you're independently wealthy and you can just, have a hobby business here, go forth and conquer. Sounds great to me. But the idea, this term workforce housing, and we did a podcast on, affordable housing and workforce housing, like that term gets thrown around. I think politicians think it makes them sound good. Like, yeah, I'm in favor of workforce housing. Well, who isn't? But what I don't want to see is the continued growth of 386 square foot efficiency apartments where it's like a modern day coal town where people are hemmed in, right? They can make just enough to live in Driggs, Idaho, so that I can have a delicious cheeseburger at Citizen 33, which in my opinion is the best burger in the valley. I digress. Protecting Medicaid to keep rural hospitals viable. Yes, we need to keep the hospital viable. I think there's a lot of compounding factors with the hospital. I did reach out to the hospital management, ask them if they'd like to come on the podcast. That invite's still open if you're listening. Um, I think the hospital got a little too big for its britches with some of the services it was offering. I personally think Teton County needs a very good, very well staffed emergent care facility, a fancy walk-in clinic with the imaging technology they currently have. I personally don't think we should be doing joint replacements in Driggs, Idaho. We don't have the volume of customers here to do that kind of work, in my layperson's understanding. I think we're kind of seeing that right now, right? Like I recently saw orthopedic surgeons national average $500,000-$600,000 a year. I don't know how many hips you have to replace or elbows you have to rebuild in a public-private hospital kind of setting to make that viable. Because it's not just the doctor; it's all their specialized staff, all the specialized equipment, all the follow-up care, the physical therapy. We're not big enough yet, right? Again, we're less than 1% of the state of Idaho population. So yes, would it be nice to have those services here? Of course, but as in a recent podcast or a conversation with the local fire chief, he said you have to manage your expectations. People have to learn to manage their expectations living in rural America, and that can't be more true at the hospital. I often joke when I have friends and family visit, I say, "Don't get hurt, or I'm taking you to the veterinarian." I kind of look at me and say, "Listen, we have a small community hospital. They do a phenomenal job. Hopefully the weather's good, because if you're really hurt, you're getting flown somewhere, chances are, to get you put back together." So you have to be careful here and take some risks. We're not completely off the grid here, but, you got to be smart about it. And again, manage your expectations. If you need a hip, you might have to go to Rexburg or Idaho Falls or Salt Lake City or Denver. Going on here. James appears passionate about hospital financial struggles and the recent layoffs affecting Teton Valley Healthcare's infusion clinic. Arguing rural healthcare needs more support. Of course it does. We are not unique in this. If you hop on the interwebs and type in rural hospital failure, it's happening all over the country. Everybody's got to start somewhere, he said, and I know that's a big jump for me. You think? But we need fresh minds, younger people. Right now, it's just a bunch of old white guys. Well, have you looked around, Commissioner James? Who lives in Idaho? Just as a matter of fact, it's mostly white people live in Idaho. James said, "I'm learning the ropes, learning how the process works." Yes, I wish the process was learned locally and focused locally. The career politicians at the state and federal level have just gotten us into a heck of a mess. Have they, though? I think your expectations are unreasonable. Again, back to managing expectations. It's okay to tell people no. When the constituents call you and say, "My road's this, my road's that," in a twist of fate, I mentioned this in a prior podcast, they paved, I think it's North 500, north of Hatches Corner. That road is very heavily traveled. It services a lot of people. They paved it this summer. It's beautiful. Now people are complaining, apparently, that people are driving too fast on the paved road. Well, what'd you expect? You put a racetrack in. But again, managing expectations. Tell people, no, your road is probably not going to be paved for the next 15 years. Your plowing is going to be infrequent. We have limited resources here. I saw an article, it was in either Buck Rail or Jacksonville News and Guide a few years ago, and I wish I could get my hands on it. Feel free to send it to me. It was a little editorial blurb. Someone had written in and basically said, hey, it was the same thing. People were complaining that the roads aren't plowed and they're beat up in the winter and into the spring and mud season. And this gentleman who had obviously lived there a long time, he wrote into the paper and said, hey, you moved to rural Wyoming. Snow chains, four-wheel drive, a little weight in the back of your truck. Don't drive a low-slung vehicle here. Look where you lived, right? If one of your criteria for living here was perfect Grand Prix style roads, you made a bad decision. Continuing on the article, James faces Little, who was first elected governor in 2018 after previously serving as lieutenant governor and in the Idaho Senate, and is seeking a third 4-year term. The other Republican challengers are Daniel Fowler, Ethan Giles, Justin Plant, Lisa Marie, Sean Culver Crystal, and Mark Fitzpatrick. So, great little point hidden in that paragraph. Governor Little, Idaho native, right? He's got a ranching background. I think it is very difficult to move to Idaho and short of, being really entrenched here for maybe 20, 30 years, it's a heavy lift to get into Idaho state level politics, especially if you're going to be kind of a squishy middle of the road. Are you a moderate? Are you libertarian? Are you Republican? No one knows. You're making all this noise as a new person in local level politics. It's a big lift to get in there. Personally, I think it's a distraction. I think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. It makes me wonder, is the county travel budget blown up because he's out there hobnobbing in Boise trying to make inroads? I don't like anything about it. Going on, I got a tough row to hoe because Governor Little has about a $3 million war chest for his campaign, James said. Of course. He's coming up into like his 20th year in Idaho politics. James continued, I just want them to see our face. I want to see Teton counties here. We're part of the state. Send us all those great big checks. Well, again, just as a straight mathematical formula, right? If we're going to evenly distribute money based on population, we're entitled to 0.646 of the state of Idaho's budget. That's not much money considering Idaho doesn't have the budget of, say, California or whatever. And back to my point about, some places in this country, if you're an outsider, you can move somewhere. And if you have the right amount of money and just enough influence, you can get into state level politics anywhere as long as you meet the residency requirements and you live there just long enough. Like I just saw Mark Teixeira, the Yankees first baseman from the Derek Jeter days. He just won a primary in Texas for a U.S. representative seat. He's from Maryland, and then he lived in New York, I guess, when he was with the Yankees. And he moved to Texas, and he's carving out an existence there. But it's a different demographic there. I think it's harder based on my observations. Idaho state level politics is, especially East Idaho and Southern Idaho, is very name recognition driven, familial driven. And like I've heard some people say, well, Commissioner James is running for governor, really put us on the map. And I'm like, I don't know. If I was the governor or any of the henchmen making these decisions, I would look at this move as like, you're like an ankle biting dog. You're just here to annoy us and pester us. Like, yes, we get it. You guys want money. They want money. This other county wants money. And again, if everything was squared away and 100% here in Teton County, or more realistically, 105 or 110%, everything was running smooth like a Rolex watch here. You know what? You want to run for governor? Go ahead. And that would be an amazing accomplishment considering you've only been in office for 15 months. But that's not the case here. We have these zoning issues. We have these lawsuits we're still getting cleaned up. We're seeing land use decisions get drug on for another month, another 2 months. We got to ask another question. There's a comma in the wrong place. There's a lot of things that are not in order here to be going and running for state governor. Carrying on. The winner of the Republican primary will advance to the November 3rd general election, where they could face one of 4 Democrat candidates: Chanel Torres, Jill Kirkham, Maxine Duran, or Terry Pickens. Also in the broader race are Libertarians Paul Sand and Melissa Sue Robinson, retired Idaho Supreme Court Justice John Stegner running as an independent, and a Constitution Party candidate who legally changed his name to pro-life. What a bold move. This year, all 105 seats in Idaho legislature are up for election. The other statewide offices are on the ballot are Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, State Controller, State Treasurer, and Superintendent of Public Instruction. Locally, District 35 will see contested races up and down the ballot. Incumbent Senator Mark Harris is seeking re-election to the Senate seat, facing a Democratic primary between Mary Rotz Kilhefner and Walter Boyd. Walter Boyd. In the House 35A race, appointed incumbent Mike Veal placed in the seat by Governor Brad Little after Representative Kevin Andrus resigned to join the Trump administration, will face a primary challenge from Chad Christensen, who previously served in the Idaho House from 2018 to 2022. In House 35B, incumbent Representative Josh Wheeler faces no primary challenge, which is a little shocking, but will face Democrat Mary Kaufman in the general election. And that's a wrap on the article there. So, decent article. Gave a sort of broad overview of what's going on here. But my ask would be, and I haven't met anyone yet in my contact circle locally that's like, oh wow, this is a really great idea for, the Spud Drive-In is a smoking heap of rubble from a windstorm like a half a decade ago, and that can't get squared away because of some bureaucratic hurdles that could be fixed, you know. But now you're going to go run for governor. Not happy. So my ask would be, if you're also unhappy or have concerns about this, drop them an email or phone call them. I'm going to give you the email address here and the phone number. This is right off the county's webpage. If you want to look there, the other commissioners' contact informations are also. So this is R as in Robert, rjames at tetoncountyidaho.gov. That's rjames at tetoncountyidaho.gov. The phone number listed for him on the county webpage is 208 607 6519. 208 607 6519. Just going to go through my notes here. If I was a Democrat right now, I would be donating to that campaign and chuckling all the way. Personally, again, people aren't going to like this, and it's not because I don't want the Republicans to win. I see no path forward for Republicans in Teton County in the 2026 election cycle. And when Commissioner Wolf and Commissioner James were running for election, very thankful that they threw their hat in the ring and they ran for election. My general life outlook is, if you're going to do something, do it all the way. Don't just get in there and, wring your hands and boo-hoo about it. Like, if you didn't think the job was going to be hard or challenging, you obviously didn't do any homework. That goes back to my point. I'm not sure if he ever even attended a county commissioner meeting before going there. But I was told to be quiet and hushing up leading up to the election in 2024. I had major concerns about both these candidates mucking things up so badly for the Republican Party that it would make it untenable for a Republican to be successful in Teton County or win a county level election for, I don't know, the next 10 years, 20 years, the next generation, because how could you not fall back and say, oh, are you going to be like those other two guys that came here and did nothing? As I mentioned in previous podcasts, to win as a Republican, this is based on straight voter registration numbers. In Teton County, Idaho, in the year of our Lord 2026, you need to have some of those middle-of-the-road people, the unaffiliated voters, the independents, the constitutional, the libertarian. It's not just, the Republicans. Plus, you have what I'll call it voter fraud. You have people who are voting Democrat, who like to play games and get cute in the elections, and they register as Republicans as a workaround. Another point of contention with this whole running for governor thing, I couldn't point to one single major decisive policy achievement or hurdle that has been cleared in the time in office. And there's no reason for that. The votes are there, right? The conservative votes, the Republican votes, however you want to frame it. The two people that ran on a given platform with certain agenda ideas or goals in mind, I've seen none of it accomplished. If I'm wrong, send me an email. I want to hear what you think has been accomplished. And I'm not talking individual land use applications. I'm talking things that will benefit the greater good of the community, specifically like the zoning thing, so that families can afford to stay here in the county. Let me just go into that for a minute. I think a workable option would be say, okay, we want to keep the next generation of Teton Valley natives in Teton County, Idaho. It's very expensive to build here. It's very expensive, if not unaffordable, to the average working class person to buy land here on the open market. So how about this? Let's go back to what the old land use code used to say for zoning. If you have 20 acres of land, and add this to it, if you have a minimum lot size of, say, 20 acres, I think the county should do something like let you break off a minimum of, say, 5 acres, so we don't end up with a million tiny lots. 5 acres, you can gift it to someone in your family. They have to keep it for a period of time, 5, 10, 15 years before they can sell it, so they're not speculating on the real estate market. And then have a window of time for this. Say, okay, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We're going to give you from 2026 to 2031. We're going to give you like a 5-year window, give or take, to get this done. That will create more inventory, right? We have a bit of an inventory problem here that's affordable. So if families can give their family a piece of property, that will keep the next generation there perhaps. And then, people die, people move, whatever. It'll create a little bit more of a pool here so families can grow into the community instead of being forced to live in an apartment in Victor or Driggs or go flee to Rexburg or God knows where else. My solution is not what everyone wants. Some people want smaller lots. Some people want the ability to be able to split the land with this exception and just sell it on the open real estate market as a way to make money. But if you're doing that, now you're selling to the outside world, and you're going to continue to change and create this land speculation money making opportunity here in Teton County. If the goal is to keep Teton County families, the farming families, the blue collar families here in Teton County, whatever the solution is, I feel pretty strongly it has to be within the family, not just on the open real estate market. I've had some people tell me, you're very critical of the commissioners. And I want you to know, the listening audience, I've had conversations with them face to face. I've had conversations with them over email. I've had conversations in the form of public comment at meetings. I've had conversations with them on the campaign trail. And now I feel it's appropriate to be here with my voice on this platform for everyone to hear. If you want to hear my opinion or whatever, here it is. This has been ratcheting up over time, the steady increase in pressure. And I've seen no course correction. I've seen admission of mistakes, like this insane juvenile ordinance thing. How much bandwidth has that taken up? Like, I don't know, 100 hours of county time, staff time, budget time, county manager time, the attorney's time, the endless public comments, the emails, the vitriol on Facebook about it. That should have been squashed and handled. Again, I don't think that this tactic of running for governor is going to help us locally. I mean, listen, if it turns out that somehow Boise is writing us a check for $22 million is here, Teton County, go forth and fix all your stuff. I just don't see that. I don't think politics works that way. And I consider myself a student of politics, and I pay attention to what's going on around around the country in politics. I just don't see this as a winning tactic to somehow woo the state. I don't see Brad Little, the governor, and the decision makers in Boise going, oh, you know what? We got this all wrong. You know what, Teton County, how much do you want the check written out for? I don't see that happening. Just going through my list of notes here. Yeah. So again, if you're as dismayed about this idea of our freshman commissioner, who seemingly can't get the ball across the finish line of some of the big local issues, if you're not happy with this, I really encourage you to contact them, attend a county commissioner meeting. There's one coming up on the 9th, and speak about this publicly. I would also encourage you to speak out against this road and bridge levy that they're pushing. Again, this levy is being pushed. I don't think the state is I don't even think the dust has settled whether or not they're actually cutting our budget. I haven't heard any questions asked in public about, would that $1 million budget cut, would that mean that all of our roads are going to fall into disrepair in 1 year and we're never going to recover from this? I don't see that happening. But anyway, very disappointing. That's my rant. There's a commissioner meeting Monday. I intend to do a recap Monday. I'll probably have it up Tuesday about that meeting. I think there's a couple of spicy topics on the agenda. So, what can you do? Life in Teton County, Idaho, 2026. Well, that's all I got for you today. If you'd like to contact the show, you may do so by emailing us at the Isak Clemens Show at gmail.com. That's the same spelling as the podcast itself. Please give the show a follow on the Rumble app. If you have an idea for the show or a topic or you want to be on the show, drop me an email. We'll get that squared away. Stay safe and have a great day.